Good morning.
Good morning.
I am,
Morning.
Good morning.
I am sure you are just as happy to see me as I am to see you.
Always.
Right. I have 2 minutes. I'm getting set. So we left off yesterday. We did food, beverage, and steaks, right? So let me just make sure I'm on course. Training schedule. Today is Friday, environment, video day. You don't have to listen to me talk. Okay, so just environment and videos. Vanessa and I watched the videos. I believe that took about an hour, right? A little less than an hour, Vanessa?
Yeah, about, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to show you all the videos on here, but we went through them all and we picked the key ones we thought we should share with people. They were all shorts, but I think they're good. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Guess where I'm at today?
Where?
My background. I changed my background to like vineyard sites and liquor sites.
So what are we drinking?
I'm in Lake Como today.
Wow, we're having a
French
Brunello.
Accorda. I'm at French Accorda, Lake Como.
What's that region famous for? Anything with wine?
French Accorda, Italian sparkling.
Oh,
It's
yeah?
very much like champagne. Probably
I
one of the gold.
think I drank a bottle of that at Munzu last week from that region. And it was surprisingly good.
It's very much like
It was just locked.
champagne, the same method of making it, same grapes, just about 2/3 the price.
Yeah, I was very impressed. And then Sunday, after 26 years of hearing how wonderful it is, I'm finally going to eat at the Circus Steakhouse. Everybody I know says it's unbelievably good. So I gotta try it. Okay, environment. I've already gotten in my first battle with Craig. There's a lot of environmental issues that we deal with in the restaurant business. New York City has wonderful water that comes out of their taps. It comes from the Adirondack Mountains up north. There's up until I'd say 1999, 2000, there were 2 pipes that brought all the water to 8 million people. In the late 1940s, they said, hey, if one of these pipes ever go down, we're going to have 4 million people without water. So they decided to build pipe 3 as a backup, if anything. The reason they got worried is those 2 pipes were made from wood. And in a city like New York City, most of the water mains are made of wood. It's a very old city. So they can't, there's too many of them. There's about 15 levels of things under the ground in New York that make that city run. And there's no way to replace the water mains. So they only replace them as they burst. And it's always a huge mess wherever it happens. And it's always months of gridlock and everything else every time one breaks. So I'm telling you this because having these old water mains, even though they get wonderful, mountain spring water direct to their faucet in their homes, there's sometimes a huge amount of bacteria in their water. And we'll get an instant email from the water department. And we have to boil all the water in the restaurant that we use for anything. So there's a lot of things we don't face in Nevada, but water is a big one we face environmentally. Our water is bad. It is hard. It has tons of minerals in it. It comes from the Colorado River. Our water treatment plants for our sewage dumps back into our water source. After our brown water goes through a treatment plant, it's pumped back into Lake Mead. It's pretty disgusting. We just purchased a $15,000 water purification. It spits out sparkling and flat water for our guests. We won't be charging. There will be bottled water available, but that's an environmental issue. I don't think you guys need to worry so much in the service end of a business like this, but you guys live here, so you're going to face the same environmental issues for yourself and your children and your loved ones as we do in the restaurant protecting our guests. So we like everybody to be, environmental conscious. When we had the barbecue, Rob, our kitchen manager, it was at like 9 a.m. You guys weren't coming to 11. The first thing he did, like every cook I know does, is he fires up the stoves. And I'm like, Rob, when are we cooking? He's like 11 o'clock. I said, I would turn the stove on at 10:55. Burning 2 hours of natural gas, it's not good for the environment when you don't have to. So many restaurants I'm involved with, I go there in the morning and everything's burning. All the ovens are hot. These guys aren't going to cook for 2-3 more hours. Nothing's going in there. That gets me crazy. It's not just the money down the tubes, but we're burning natural resources for some reason, for no reason. So we need, we're going to have schedules for HVAC, what time they go to what temperatures, what times a year that has to be changed, what times stoves are fired. Never, if you ever see a leaky faucet, something, and report it to us right away. We need to fix anything that wastes natural resources in our city, especially water. We need to be very careful with water. There's other environmental issues that we deal with in the restaurant industry. The chemicals that we wash our dishes and glassware for, we try to buy as green as product as we can, but it's not good for the environment, right? Soap is bad for the environment. And especially in a city like this where we have to purify the brown water as well, right? So we always want to make sure our dishwashers and our glass washers are calibrated correctly so that we're not dumping excess chemicals into our environment. We have to make sure that our porters and utility people are using the correct dispenser systems for chemicals when they put together a bucket to wash floors and things like that. Not just because it costs money, but we don't want to dump extra chemicals, and on and on and on. Everything we do, we should always be thinking about the environment. We should always be protecting our natural resources, our city's resources. It's just part of being good people, a good company. So I want, it's also goes back to always walk around with eyes wide open with the guests. Always walk around eyes wide open with our restaurant. That's our home. That's our house. We have to take care of it, right? So, and it takes all of us. That's a real team project. Lighting. Noah and I laid it out. The building department says when you walk through those 2 front doors of the restaurant, you got to be able to turn the lights on so nobody gets hurt walking through the dark to a light switch. So we've carved up the lighting so that you're not going to throw a master switch or hit a master lighting panel and the whole restaurant lights up. There'll be 2 switches we can turn on. If it is dark, I mean, most of the time we're going to be coming in the day, but we're not going to light every room in the place all the time. We're going to use LED bulbs because we burn less electricity with them everywhere. On and on. That's more. We talked about the natural gas, ovens, sewage. I don't think we come into things that can't go into the sewer too much, but if we decide to paint something, or, you know, we just got to make sure in the restaurant industry, every drain in that house goes into what's called a grease trap. All water passes through a grease trap. Maybe not the restroom, but all the sinks behind the bar, all the sinks in the kitchens, the floor drains all pass through a grease trap. Grease traps are meant to separate grease and water. We bring a company in and they pump the grease out as it accumulates. It's costly, but we don't want to dump things into our sewers that are going to wind back in Lake Mead, right? And grease is a big thing. You know, we pay for grease for fryers. You know, we pay people to come and take that grease away, right? Never dump any kind of frying pan oils and things like that. We'll have a receptacle, oils go in the receptacle. We pay a company to take it away and handle it in a proper fashion. They used to pay us for it. Now they pay you to take it away. They sell the number one use for fryer oil is they sell it to companies that make soaps, and they make soap out of those oils, or, you know, they purify it, they take out of it what they need, and then add it into different soap products. I mean, those are responsible ways of doing things. So we always want to be responsible. We're going to try to buy some environmentally friendly to-go bags. We'll try to buy environmentally friendly to-go containers, not metal, not styrofoam, you know, things that are more biodegradable in landfills and things like that. It's just our social responsibility, and we are, you know, we want to be good people in a good company. That's who we are, right? And just like I say with our people being our greatest assets, we just don't want to preach it. We want to live it. That makes sense. I'll move on. Next thing was videos, right? So let's test and make sure you guys can hear them. And I did not, unfortunately, before I even go there, on the document page, Mae Daly training, I only have the first day. I still have to put, I didn't have time last night to get up yesterday's training. So yesterday and today's will probably be up tonight. You guys don't need them, but for new people, I want to make sure I keep this page current. Okay, so we're going to go to the video page now. So as I mentioned before, I used to write a weekly newsletter. Every newsletter every week included 3 videos. It was my favorite part of doing the newsletter. If I spoke about wines from Japan, I would sit, because I don't have much of a social life outside of music, so I would sit on Sunday mornings and I would watch 50 short videos on wines from Japan. And I'd pick the best 3, and that would be incorporated in what I wrote that week in the newsletter as the main subject, and it was always 3 videos to back up what I said. And that's how I learned and, you know, explored. I enjoy it because I enjoyed learning. So videos on this page, when I decided to put my own website together, I went back over all of those 3 videos each week for years that I picked. And these were the ones that I felt had the most importance for this site for training purposes. So that's how this list of videos come together. We're not going to play every one of them, but let's start with the top 5 secrets. Tell me if you can hear this or not when I get there. Are you seeing and hearing that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. You stop me.
Yeah,
if
I
it's
got
a
it.
problem. All right.
Restaurant is a theater. Absolutely. It's a theater for all the senses. My name is Charles Masson. I'm the director of the restaurant Chevalier.
So Charles just said a restaurant is a theater. What do I call the area that Chef Tomas and the culinary attendants will be cooking on? Our chef's stage, right? So I'm not the only person that thinks this way. I just want to point that out. You know, what I call dining room theater, a lot of people call it that. So I'll stop these at time to time when there's an important point. But what he just said so ties into our concept.
Yeah, the Baccarat Hotel and Residences. I believe there are 5 major ingredients in running a great restaurant. First of all, you need great food. Great food that seems very simple. The simplest dishes are the hardest to accomplish. How it's presented, how it's served, sets the mood. If the place is beautiful, it seduces you. The ambiance is set not just with comfortable furniture that we detail from the press tablecloth and napkin, the candelabra, the flowers on the table, and of course the silverware, where everything seems natural, like it belongs. But crucial is the lighting. Lighting is probably the most imperceptible detail, that if the lighting is great, you don't know it. If the lighting is awful, you sure know it. To me, flowers represent life, quite simply. And
So when he was talking about lighting, I don't know if I went through this with you guys, but our menu will be 4 pages. It's black and white for a reason. The black print on white makes it pop. It's 4 pages and not 2 because it fits on 2 because we decided to go with a looser format and a larger font. And there's chandeliers, and I like dimly lit restaurants, but we've sourced a pretty nice table lamp. They weren't cheap. They're LED, but they have different tones. We haven't picked the tone of light until we set it on a white cloth. We'll figure out the tone. But it will light the table, but not from above. And people, the point is, lighting is important for the ambiance and the look, but so many restaurants get that beautiful look, you can't read your menu, and that shouldn't be either. I'm not saying this place, but I just want to point out really important elements that I think we need to be aware of.
they also make you aware, even in the city, that it's possible to cultivate a garden even in the most urban of settings. Great service for me is expression. Great service, you don't even know you're being served. It's more about really listening and being attentive to every single need that the guest may have and to anticipate. Very good bartender, for instance, will immediately see a guest coming in and know exactly what that guest will order. Consistency is key. You really have to tend to all the details as if it was the first time with the same.
You've heard Chris talk about consistency more than once. I'm stopping this video a lot because I really want you guys to understand so much of what Craig, Chris, myself, Thomas, so much of the stuff we're preaching, it's not ours. Okay? But it's right. And I like these videos because I like you to hear these things from other people besides us. Anybody like this, that I'm sharing a video from Charles here, I respect him, right? So to me, these are industry leaders, these are mentors, these are peers, and they should become your people as well, because these are the people that do it the best, right? And we have to respect that. So I say we don't follow trends. No, maybe not, but we do, in our industry, we do have peers and mentors and people we respect, so that there is. I mean, you see how beautifully these tables are set? That's going to be our tables, right? They have to be neat. Those tables have to look pristine at all times. Everything on the table should be where it goes. Unless you got to guess like me. I rearrange my setting and everything every time, but that's just because that's me. I'm freaky, but it's almost like, to me, this is like watching a ballet. This guy taking us through the elements of a great restaurant.
Freshness, you have to approach the table, approach how you clean the room, how everything is cooked, as if you were doing it, well, you're recreating the restaurant each day. That I think is a basic consistency. A typical mistake in many restaurants that don't last a long time, to forget that the guest is really the most important ingredient in a successful restaurant. That guest walked in, may have had the most horrific day at the office, comes in and you are actually able to make them forget what a horrible day was, and all's well that ends well with a great meal.
Let me show you how we do stuff around here. Actually,
So what'd you guys think of that one? Anybody learn one single thing from watching that video?
Just a lot of the stuff that you've already been talking about, like the consistency and the being able to change someone's mood. It just touches on stuff we've been talking about throughout all these
Exactly.
pieces.
And that's why I really want to show this, because I wanted you to hear it from other people but us. Chris?
And me, I really loved how perfectly the tables were set. Everything was
Looks like a ballet.
very edges. I love that.
Remember when we talk about value statements, right? You know, is that piece of beef really worth $100? Well, what I just saw was worth $100 and there was nothing on the plate, right? That's, you know, those are kind of starting getting the essence of what we're going to become, right? They did it. Now we have to do it in our way, right? He does it in his way, but the underlying elements were the same as we've been preaching to you, right? All right, my favorite employee training video. Here we go. Only because the characters are so damn cute. Struggling. Like, so we talked about this, right? He's the performer. Nobody's helping him. He don't care. He's getting it done, right? He's into it. He goes no matter what. That's Jason. No, I'm only kidding. There's me. Uh-oh. It's great. So that video was basically an advertisement for a company that comes in and helps train employees and turn them into performers. But when you look at this in your head, Melissa or Orion on, or they're at night? Melissa's on.
I'm here.
So you've worked in the industry. Can you relate different people you worked with? You don't have to tell us names, but could you go, like, because Craig and I were just doing it, like we could go through the staff of the people we worked with and categorize them in those 5 categories.
100%.
And that's why I like it so far, because it's such a simple video, but we can't have those suppressive people. We all have to learn how to become performers. It's the only way we're going to strive. That first video, that guy's team are all performers. You don't get that pristine without having all performance. My next HR kind of thing, I've heard this term a million different times in a million different situations, a hostile work environment. I've been yelled at by bosses. That's not a hostile work environment. And I think, I don't, trust me, I don't believe yelling is acceptable. There's something wrong with bosses that are yelling at people, but that's not the definition of a hostile work environment. That's a bad work environment, but it's not a hostile work environment. But I just, we don't want to ever have a hostile work environment, so I want people to understand what that is. Come on, kids.
I let AI plan my week and I have 0 regrets. So I have a project coming up. So I start by listing the project.
You hear the term hostile work environment a lot in the news, on the press. A hostile work environment, strictly speaking, is an environment that's created by a workplace that's charged, and it's either charged with sexual innuendos that are inappropriate based on race, or some other type of protected characteristic. It is not common to misconception. It is not an environment where it's just not a great place to work, or where your boss is a jerk. That's not illegal. In Florida, we don't recognize a superhuman resources department, and we don't have the state come in and say, listen, you need to be nicer to your employees. Hostile environment really is a term of art designed to remedy wrongs in the workplace that are premised based on your age, race, sex, gender, some type of protected characteristic.
So it's pretty simple. A hostile work environment is basically an environment where discrimination for any reason exists. I don't like people from Hawaii, and I have employees from Hawaii. That's a hostile work environment, right? I don't like Muslim people. That's a hostile work environment. We don't accept anything like that in our company. You ever hear anything like that at work, you report it to one of us. Immediately, we will remedy that. And that's why I like to just show that video. It's 30 seconds. But that's a hostile work environment. If we wind up someday with a supervisor that's yelling at employees, that's an easy remedy for me. I get rid of the supervisor, we move on, right? But, it's a big problem if there's not just, see, that's the thing where I say people don't understand hostile work environments. You can have a hostile work environment and work for the kindest people in the world. But if they allow their employees to create that situation. See, so a hostile work environment doesn't have to come from just management. It can come from anyone in the workplace. So does everybody understand the difference of that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And we all have to make sure that that is never the environment in our workplace, okay? We have to, I don't care what people think. Everybody has the rights to think whatever they want in life. But when they're in Mae Daly's, we love everybody, okay? we don't discriminate against anyone in Mae Daly's. Chef Rob, in his interview, he obviously noticed he has a lot of tattoos and a lot of tattoos on his face. He has a hard time getting a job. He told me sometimes. He goes, people are weird, isn't it? I said, you can paint your head yellow. I really don't care. You're a good guy. I want to work with you. So, I just want to make sure everybody understands what a hostile work environment is, because all you guys could create it too. So we all have to make sure that we don't ever create that environment, okay? 4 skills of great communication. I talk a lot about communication because
Your child needs these 3 key factors to get into an Ivy League or top 20.
the reason I talk so much about communication, how many bad emails have I sent you? I break down in communication all the time. It's not one of my strengths. I'm organized. That's one of my strengths. I have a hard time. I don't have a hard time communicating one-on-one. I have a hard time with information I have to get out to a lot of people because I move too quick and I have to learn to slow down. But I passed it off to Chris, and the last one I passed off to Chris and Denise, and we still have to send another one. So it's not just a Richard problem, you know. Clean communication is a problem in personal life and work life, every aspect of life. So we all have to try to become really good communicators. It's something I constantly work on. I constantly talk about because I constantly have problems doing it. So, and again, goes back to self-evaluation. I know I'm not good at that. I'm trying to get better. And I'm working a long time.
You know, especially in this business, Richard, I know we get, you know, sped up and get a little emotional. And one of the things about communication is taking some of the emotion out of it and being level-headed when you're discussing things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. You can't run with emotion at the workplace because usually it doesn't turn out good.
5 university. And it's not having a good
Great communication. There's a big topic. How do we communicate great in today's world? It's not easy. It's never been harder. The world we live in today moves fast. Attention spans are low. Everybody has enormous information at their fingertips. People don't listen very well anymore. It's hard to be heard in the 21st century. So how do we communicate really, really well in that kind of an environment? It's not easy, but we can make it easier for you. And here's how. Think about anybody that does anything at a very, very high level. Think about the singers, the actors, the dancers that you know. Think about the athletes that you know. And if you look closely at the way they have become very good at what they do, they all prepare in the same way. They all practice their skill in the same way. They break the skill down into smaller pieces. They improve their performance on each piece. They put all the pieces back together. And then all of a sudden, they're performing at a higher level. That's the way we want you to think about your communication skills. Let's break it down into smaller pieces. Communication is a
All right, so I've told you guys before, I have a son with autism. We have foundations for autism. I'm around people with autism all the time. Children and adults with learning disabilities. You break it down into the simplest step. So I am going to pick up my telephone and I want to put it in the bag. So I just go, wherever my bag is, and I put it in. If I was teaching my son how to put his telephone away, folding it, well, picking it up, I have to teach Joey, pick up the telephone. He'll look at me. Until I can teach him to pick it up, I can't go on to the next step. Joey, fold the telephone. No joke, like this. I might have to do hand over hand. It sounds crazy, right? But people that have those kind of severe learning disabilities, that deep, my son doesn't understand what I'm saying. So he's trying to read my body and what I'm doing. So he learns visually. You can't teach him by talking to him. So I'm going to break down, picking up this phone, folding it up, and putting it in my bag. So I'm going to, when I decide I'm going to teach Joey to do that, I'm going to go, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. So I'm going to teach him 3 things, not 1. And then at the end, I'm going to put the 3 together for him. That's how communication works, because a person like my son, who is probably has the hardest imaginable time communicating, that I can teach them something if I break it down into those steps. And I think I've said this before in training. My favorite or most used statement in my office for years was, I never said that. I believe you heard it, because someone doesn't come to you and said, I told you to put the phone on the right side of the desk. And then when I walk in, the phone's on the left. I say, why is the phone on the left? They're gonna say, well, you told me to put the phone there. And you know, Denise is great for that. Like she'll stand her ground. She's ready for a battle no matter what you're talking about, you know. So I found for me the best way to diffuse that kind of a situation where you say, don't bring your emotion into situations. The easiest way for me to diffuse that is like, I believe you. I believe that's what you heard, but trust me, it's not what I said, which means we just have a communication breakdown. There's no reason for an argument here. We agree that you heard that, I said that. Give me the respect back. I believe you heard that. Believe me when I said I said this. Let's put it behind us. Phone's on the right side of the desk. We move on. There's not a problem. You know, kitchens get heated, right? Something stupid like with mise en place or whatever. You know, being in the wrong place all the time can get two people into an argument, you know, because they're letting emotions run wild instead of doing it. So we'll continue. I'll explain at the end of the videos, I'll explain why.
Big topic. Let's make it more manageable. We think communication comes down to 4 key skills. Number 1, how you assess situations, how you look at the world around you, your level of awareness, how well you listen. The better we are able to assess what's going on around us, the more likely we are to communicate in a way that's relevant to people. Number 2, message. How well do we build a message plan based on what we've learned? How do we put it together? What's most important? What do we include? What do we leave out? What do we lead with? The better we can build a message plan, the better we will communicate. Number 3, document. How well do we translate that message into whatever document we need on that day? Maybe it's an email, maybe it's a white paper or a memo, maybe it's a PowerPoint presentation.
So I think I've said this in one part of the training, right? That I don't believe email and text are a good, clean form of communication. There's no voice inflection, there's no body language. It's incomplete communication. But I love email and text to immortalize things, to document things, just like they're saying here. So, you know, that it's great for. I needed molding specs for the walls this morning. I went to the email and got them. It's great for that, but not full communication.
But how well do we take that message and then translate it into a document that's actually going to help us in that meeting, in that conversation? And number 4, deliver. How well do we deliver? How well do we speak? How well can we command attention with presence when we stand in front of the room, or when we lead the phone call, or when we participate in a conversation? Don't just think about your communication skills as this one big thing. It's actually 4 things. And your ability to, number 1, assess situations. Number 2, build good message plans. Number 3, translate that message into a document that helps. And number 4, deliver with confidence and presence. Think about each of those 4 skills, work on each one of those skills, put those skills back together, and then guess what? You're going to be communicating at a much higher level.
Why am I playing stuff like that? Like, why would I'm supposed to be training you guys to work in restaurants. So anybody see tie-ins here?
Absolutely. Communication is key. We work as a team. And a lot of times there might be good information that you're trying to convey to a coworker, but they won't necessarily hear the message if, say, you don't communicate it, you don't deliver it well. you deliver it crazy or scream at somebody, the message is going to get lost. So it's not just about what you're trying to say, but it's about building the communication where somebody will be receptive to hearing it
Mhm.
at the same time, I believe.
Yeah, and it goes, 100%, and it goes with the guests too. I give you a great example, and even take it a step further. Different people in different cultures communicate differently. The Sterling Club in Las Vegas was running 2 or 3 years, 4 years, and Mr. Sofer, who just built Fountainbleu, hired us to take over the running of the club. There was a gentleman there, Pierre Boyer, very nice man from France, born in Southern Africa, grew up in France. He ran the club since it opened, and then I became his boss. And boy, did he hate me. And I hired another fella, and he was from Turkey. So my two main front of the house guys, one guy's from France, one guy's from Turkey, and one guy's from America. And every day, or probably the first month, Pierre and I went at it. And in my head, I'm like, he's never going to transition over to my way of thinking. I'm going to have to get rid of this guy. And one day, Ibo, the guy from Turkey, walks by me and he looks at me, he goes, "You're really not very bright, are you?" And I'm not a kid. I'm probably in my mid-40s, you know? And I said, "Ibo, what do you mean I'm not bright?" He goes, "You got a rock star in there." He's talking about the guy from France. He goes, "And you haven't taken 2 seconds to understand that man, to understand where he's from, to understand how he thinks, what his culture's like." I'm not saying anybody on this phone, but in America, a lot of us are guilty of that. You know, we judge people quickly. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody here. I'll point fingers at me. I didn't take the time to learn this man. I really didn't know a whole lot about his culture in South Africa, where he's born. I didn't know anything about him. All I know is he made me angry and I made him angry. So I took Ebo's advice. Ebo said, "Leave him alone." He goes, "Forget about work for the next month and get to know him." I took him out to dinner. We spent time together, and I learned that this was a really prideful guy. Long and short of the story is, once I learned what Pierre was about, thanks to the guy from Turkey's advice, the ending of that story, he became, one of my best friends. And we worked together till he died. And I was with him when he died. So, it's communication, and I talk about all this stuff because building the team, building, the environment for you guys to strive in, and giving you the tools to strive is the only way we can be successful. Now, Angelina might have she might have the best communication. She might not need anything I'm talking about, but I need it, and I know other people need it, right? So it's the only way I feel we can all get on an even starting ground before we walk into the restaurant to train, is to make sure that we at least understand all these principles so that we can give each other the respect and support that everyone deserves at work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that's why we're doing this. I hope you don't feel it's a waste of time, because I think it's so important.
Richard,
yes.
A quick point is that maybe a lot of folks would understand is very simplistic. We're dealing with human beings. We have to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
We're dealing with humans.
Yeah, it's so important. And I talked about it training. People say, "Oh, my employees are my greatest assets," and then they don't spend any time together. And we have to grow together. And the only way we're going to have, like I said, our company culture is very simple. It's kindness. That's our thing, right? We want to be kind to each other. We want to be kind to our guests. We want to be kind to our community. Kindness that's our company culture, but the only way we're going to do that is to build these skills together and take the time to learn who each person is and respect, how they are. I'm not saying you got to give it to people all the time, but at least take the time to know people, and then you can judge a person, you know. But you can't just judge people when you first meet them. It's too hard. And I made that mistake with my friend Pierre. And if Ebo didn't help me in that relationship, I would have missed out on a great friendship, right? And it was a great friendship. Okay, this next topic is another fellow we worked with for a very long time who's passed away. And he taught me this pretty early on. I think he didn't even work for us when he taught me this concept, and it's a marketing concept that's called identity versus image. Let's watch the video for a second. I found this video because I wrote about this when he told me about it.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here at What Now, welcome. And please remember to hit the subscribe button to get notifications on all new videos that I upload. So today's video is all about something that I feel many people struggle with, and this is your identity versus your image. It's important to understand that your identity and your image is not only for your daily life, but also for the branding of your business. First and foremost, there are always two sides of you: who you show to the people around you and who you are when you're alone at home and when nobody's watching. Usually the person you show to everybody else is the extroverted, outgoing, happy, excited person, and the person that you are at home is usually a little bit more relaxed.
I have to stop there. In this what they're talking about right now, right? These two images or projections of yourself. This is social media today personified, right? We put on Facebook only what we want people to see, right? I might spend 23 hours a day in bed crying. I get up, I go out at the pool, I go, and I post it on Facebook, and people think I'm living my best life, right? So that's kind of, it just hits me funny that this is from quite a while ago, and now it's more apparent than ever.
Now, a lot of people may think that it's a bad thing and that you should let your freak flag fly and totally be yourself because screw what everyone else thinks. And whilst I agree, you should be yourself and never budge on your values, your integrity, or your dignity, it is perfectly okay and sometimes incredibly helpful to only show some of the cards you're playing in this game of life. So welcome to...
This just happened to Jason and I and Denise. She says, don't show all your cards all the time. You know, I had an uncle I love very much. He said what was on his mind and he didn't care. He died around 80 years old. He had an enormous family. There were 4 people at his funeral. You know, when you just say what's on your mind all the time, you make a lot of enemies in life. And my poor uncle never learned that lesson until he was too old to reverse the damage he did to his life. So here we go.
Identifying your identity versus your image. So first I have to explain the two terms, as many people can confuse the two and think they're interchangeable. Your identity. This is who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, your needs and desires. Your image. This is how other people perceive you, how well you perform or deliver, or better yet, what you want them to see. In the world we live in, and even more at the age that we are, image is perceived as far more important because at this stage, we still care very much what people think of us at all times, even though we try really hard not to. You see, the problem comes when the image that you portray of yourself is completely different to who you are as a person, and in a way, catfishing those around you. If your image is that you're super outgoing and that you go on hikes every other day and you're super health conscious, but then in one way or another, people find out that you're the exact opposite of that, and you actually enjoy staying at home in your PJs, watching TV while eating a bowl of Nutella ice cream, people may and probably will feel as if you've lied to them in one way or another. And you could end up losing not only your real friends, but many, many consumers in the future. For anything to work, both in life and in business, your identity and your image need to be as aligned as possible. Otherwise, people will quickly see the disconnect of you and your brand. And by the way, you can be your brand. So why is it so important to understand both and distinguish both? First and foremost, understanding.
Okay, so this video is a little long, but I think we've seen enough of it to talk about it for a second. So somebody explain what identity means.
Identity is who you are as a person, your beliefs and your values, and just who you are.
Exactly. It's who you know you are, right, Angelina? It's your identity. I'm a God-fearing person. I'm a healthy person. I eat healthy, blah, 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 on and on. So somebody else then. So what is image?
How others perceive you and the image you're putting out into the world.
Right, perception. So sometimes we don't want in life, we may not want people to see certain things about us. So we don't share all, right? That's not lying, and that's not projecting the wrong image, so that people can see my identity. They're just not really knowing me totally, right? They don't know every aspect of me. They only know the aspects that they're showing. That's not such a bad problem. I'll tell you a bad problem. There's a restaurant in town, not a bad restaurant. It doesn't do well. Struggled since it's open and it's still struggling. And outside it says Italian restaurant, steakhouse, pizza, cocktails. There's like 8 more things all around the building. I never knew what the hell it was. I then found out it was an Italian restaurant, first and foremost. They did all the other things, but you would have never perceived it as an Italian restaurant. They have the worst image versus identity problem I've ever seen, right? So we understand what she was talking about personally, but let's take it into business. The sign that's going to be put up next week is our Mae Daly's Fine Steaks and Whiskeys logo, and it says Fine Steak and Whiskey right on the logo, and it's enormous, bigger than the sign that's there now. Underneath it, in huge letters, it just says Steakhouse. Why would I do that when the sign already says Fine Steaks up above? Why would I feel the need to make another sign that just says Steakhouse when I already said Fine Steak?
To reiterate your image.
Exactly. I know we're a steakhouse. First, foremost, that's what we're building. I'm enforcing that every second of the day I can, because I want people to know what we are. I want our identity to match our image. When you tell the world who you are, especially in business, you have to make sure that they're seeing you for who and what you are. Not everybody's bright. We have to make sure they know who we are, okay? It's super, uber important. We could have a cool bar. We could have a lot of elements in there. But our identity, we're a steakhouse, and we want to be perceived that way. So if somebody asks you what's your restaurant like, we could have the greatest seafood in the world. I work at a steakhouse. So important. Identity versus image. Wear your uniform with pride. This is a big problem for me in business.
Do you wear your work shirt with the same pride you do when wearing your favorite sports team shirt? Jeff Cowan here. Thanks for watching and listening.
I love this.
Do you wear your work shirt with the same pride you do when wearing your favorite sports team shirt? Now, this is a real question. Do you wear your work shirt with the same pride you do when wearing your...
Sorry?
I can't see the video.
No one?
You have to share the screen again. It's just on you right now.
Why did you shut it off, Vanessa? She does it all the time. All right, you seen it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
your favorite sports team shirt? I asked this question because recently I was presenting a workshop for a dealership group. All the employees were required to wear their daily uniforms, and although they all matched, I was amazed as I looked around the room at the various ways these uniforms were being worn. A few were neatly pressed and looked professional, but most looked anywhere from unneat to just plain sloppy. There were shirts and blouses that looked like they'd not been pressed, shoes that were unshined, and some uniforms looked as though the sizes were off by 2 or 3 sizes. Now, keep in mind that while this particular business owner supplied the uniforms, it was up to each employee to keep them clean and maintained. This is not anything new. As a matter of fact, situations like this seem to be commonplace these days. But what got my attention about this particular situation was the fact that the second day of the workshop was that business's NFL shirt day. Since the town I was in was a town that is an NFL franchise in it, all the employees were encouraged to wear their team's colors and favorite players' jerseys. Here's where it gets interesting. The group of people I saw that day were completely different in appearance. It was the same group, but boy, the way they presented themselves was entirely different. To a person, they had on bright and clean sports shoes. The shirts and jerseys they wore were clean, bright, pressed, and worn with excitement. As a matter of fact, they even bragged about the shirts they were wearing. It was very obvious that they were very proud to be wearing their teams and favorite players' shirts and jerseys. Now, this got me thinking, why would this group of people or any person care more about a team they can never play on? A team that they have to pay to see live? A team that, if they choose to wear their shirt or jersey, have to pay that team for that shirt or jersey? Why would they care more about and have more pride in wearing a shirt that generates no income for them than they would in wearing the one that does, their uniform shirt? Now, this is a real question. Even if you don't have an official uniform, you still have one, and it's whatever you wear to work. So how about you? Do you put more time and effort into wearing your favorite sports teams or players' uniform than you do your own? Are you not proud of where you work? Are you not proud of what you do? Are you not proud of the team that you're on? I can tell you that every day when I get up to go to work that I take great pride and time in putting on my uniform. I can tell you that I take great pride in what I do and what I want the world to know that I do it. And it all starts with the first thing that people will see when they make their initial judgments about you, your uniform. Now, here's the basic list that I check every single day before I go to work. I make sure my shoes are clean and polished. I make sure that my slacks are pressed and have a crease that is straight. I make sure that my slacks are not worn or frayed around the pockets and belt loops or discolored. I make sure that my shirt is clean, pressed, looks fresh, and has no stains. If the job I'm on requires that I wear a tie, I make sure that it too is clean, fresh, current, and tied the way ties are supposed to be. In short, I wear my uniform prouder than I do any professional sports stars or team. I wear my uniform like I'm the #1 player playing on the #1 team anywhere, and you should too. So in closing, I ask, do you wear your favorite player's or team's jersey, a jersey you have to pay to wear, with more pride than you do your own? Your own uniform is one that you're paid to wear, one that tells the public just what kind of team you play on, what type of player you are, and how much pride you have in playing on that team. Put your time and effort into your team and its uniform, and you will be rewarded with the championship season every season. Jeff Cowan here. Thanks for watching and look.
So I like this video because it's true, some people just don't put effort into how they come to work. And ties right back into, image and identity and everything else, right? If the restaurant's going to be pristine, if the tables are going to be like we saw in that first video, pristine, all this stuff, we have to be the same. I mean, I don't think we need to spend more time on this. I just thought this guy said it really well. On to the next one.
I don't know if there's anybody there.
You know what? I think you should, Richard.
Okay.
Just and on a funny note, Craig, are you going to get a new barber now? Since you used to get your hair cut every Wednesday.
I'm actually getting my haircut this Monday at 8. So my new day is going to be Mondays, but I don't have the money to burn anymore, so I can't go every week.
Greg's wife told me a funny story. They went to the Golden Nugget here in downtown Vegas, and they used the pool, and they got that crazy slide that goes through the shark tank and everything. And
No, it was at the Hard Rock.
all right, the Hard Rock. Well, his wife went through the slide. She hits the water. She wipes out. She's like, I'm a mess. So Craig comes down after it hits the water, gets out of the water, not one hair was out of place.
Are we talking about Tommy?
Craig, oh, Tom, yeah. Okay. Cultural awareness.
The UK has one of the most ethnically and religiously diverse workforces in Europe. This means that being culturally aware is an essential part of living and working in the UK today. Our cultural background exerts a powerful influence on how we interpret and interact with the world around us.
I'm a Hindu, and my faith means to me providing me with something where I have a moral background and a map of how I should behave and interact with other people.
Being a Christian for me is something that happens from the moment I wake up until when I go to bed at night. It's how I relate to other people. It's how I relate to my wife when I wake up. It's my relationship with the pupils in school and my relationship with the staff.
Our cultural background dictates how we behave within our own cultural group, and it also shapes our expectations when we're dealing with people from different cultural backgrounds. Problems can arise when we use the rules of our own culture to interpret the behaviour of another, and when we fall prey to cultural stereotypes and misperceptions.
I saw Mohammed in the gym earlier. You're washing his feet in the hand basin.
Yeah, he always does that before he prays. Pretty close, isn't it?
You have to get used to Mohammed's funny little ways. Like, if you bring in any food, make sure you don't put it in his part of the fridge. He gets really annoyed.
Apparently everyone else's food is unclean.
Of course, we can't expect to be an expert in every culture, but we can learn how to explore cultural issues intelligently and sensitively and treat everyone with the same respect. Our cultural background affects everything about us. It influences our behaviour, how we communicate, and our values and beliefs.
I don't think about what it means to be Jewish. It's just the fabric of my life. It's, it's what I do. It's how I live my life. It's the principles that I take up the street and into the shops with me. It's my daily life.
While we may be familiar with the more visible aspects of other cultures, such as their food, dress, or music, we are often less aware of the things that aren't so obvious, like social values or non-verbal behaviour, and these may be very different to our own. For example, direct eye contact means different things to different cultures. For some, it's seen as aggressive and intimidating, whereas for others, it's a way of establishing trust. Physical contact is frowned upon in certain cultures, whereas in others, it's an important way of bonding and showing empathy.
So I think for us, it's a double whammy. We have to be sensitive to each other at work, but we get, guests from every walk of life. We went to Macau and Hong Kong on business several years ago, Charlie and I. And for about 2 weeks before I left, I read up on as much Chinese culture as I could absorb because I wanted to make sure that we didn't insult anybody when we were there. And on the flight going there, I kept notes, and then Charlie and we reviewed them together. And we handled ourselves pretty well. They do business and handle themselves very different than we do in the United States. But we were prepared, and we didn't insult anybody, which I found to be a miracle. And the trip went very, very well. But we took the time to understand this culture of people that we were going to be dealing with, and we respected it. And they appreciated it. They couldn't believe we knew so many things, right? So the more we can learn, I ran a restaurant in the Empire State Building in New York City. Probably 50% of my customers did not speak English. It's an enormous international tourist destination. So a prerequisite to get a job in the front of the house is you had to be a bilingual person. You had to speak a second language. I had 27 languages covered. I did pretty well with the guests, and they were very happy. That's respecting cultures, and you know, especially like I say, it goes further than with each other, our guests as well. Do you want to keep going? You want to break? Been an hour.
Keep going.
Keep it going.
Yeah.
Keep it moving.
So the next video, now we're moving into the area of service, right? This is kind of following the same way we did the earlier training, but now some videos to reinforce, so you're hearing it from other people than us. Danny Myers opened a restaurant called Union Square in New York City. He wrote a book about the whole experience and why it was so successful at the end of the day, because Danny did a lot of things that we're doing right now with his staff back then. He is spending all his time saying who we are as a group. You're all individuals, you're all different. But, he preached to it that, we had to figure out how to become one unit, one person, and each of us making up a factor of that personality and things like that in that book. Danny did a smash burger, the most successful IPO, when he hit Wall Street that our country ever saw. He is now, most of his restaurants are non-tipping environment. He's bringing in the European culture of, how service works. He didn't like that open table reservation system was the only tool we had. So he partnered with technology companies, and he built Resi and then sold it to American Express, so there'd be a second competitor in the market that had as big as shoulders as the giant that we all had to fall to. Danny consistently through his whole career was the trendsetter. He was a mentor to everybody. He lost money a lot of times because he would test the water. He keeps saying, our restaurants people are going to come and study us, or we're going to be out of business in 6 months. When you try to set trends and make major change, you take a huge risk. We could do this restaurant just like any other steakhouse that I go to, and that wouldn't be any fun. So I'm willing to take the risk. And I'm betting on all you guys, because I think you can make it happen. So let's hear about hospitality from the master, Danny Meyer.
I think that people who think that hospitality is just for restaurants are completely missing the boat. I think hospitality is probably the single most powerful business strategy that doesn't get taught nearly enough in business school. What we've learned in our business is to understand that service and hospitality are completely different topics. Hospitality is a dialogue. If you feel like
I just have to point one thing out. Danny's sitting in Gramercy Tavern, a very, very famous restaurant. And if you're looking around, that part of New York, he's paying homage to a time in history in New York City with some of the decor in the room and things like that. This social tie-in to his place, just like we're doing with Mae Daly's, right? And the legend of Mae Daly and her story, her Vegas story that ties in, and we're tying our decor into that story and into the time period and into the city. I didn't invent this kind of thing, right? That's why we have peers and mentors, but we're trying to learn from everyone and roll it into one nice package.
on your side, hospitality is present. If you think I did something for you, hospitality is present. If you think I'm customizing an experience for you, hospitality is present. We believe that the way you make people feel is what they remember more than anything. If you're going to provide the most powerful, sustainably lasting hospitality experience, believe it or not, we've learned you have to put your customers second. And that's not something I was ever taught growing up. I was always taught Customer is always first, the customer is always right.
I keep saying, if I can't make you guys happy, you can't make your customers happy, right? This is exactly what he's talking about.
What we've learned is the best way to make the most customers happy is to make sure that the people who come to work in your organization are having a great experience coming to work. I think customers are expert at reading, is your staff focused on their work and are they having fun with each other? And if those two things are present, I can almost guarantee you a great customer experience.
I've said it several times. I'm not smart. So all these things I'm teaching you and why I like to use these videos, as you can see, I stole from everybody. All right. I always say I'm only successful because I surround myself with people smarter than me. And that goes in our industry too. I listen to my peers. I've competed with this guy in the restaurant business for 25 years. But I'm not dumb. I admire him because he's one of the best. And he's one of the hardest guys to compete with, right? So I try to learn from everyone I meet. I'll learn from you guys, but what he's saying here is so dead on when it comes to hospitality.
What we've been able to do in terms of hiring employees is to hire people 49% for their technical skills. You can be the best cook in the world or the best sommelier in the world, and we don't want you on this team unless you have the 51% emotional skills that lead to somebody who's got.
My personality interviews, I'm not the only one. I learned it somewhere, right? Remember we talked about that? And, here's somebody else does it the exact same way.
What we call a high hospitality quotient, a high HQ. And the 51% skills generally add up to somebody whose greatest pleasure in the world, having nothing to do with how good they are at their job, but whose natural wiring says it matters to me to make people feel better. And we've been able to identify what those 6 emotional skills are that are always present in somebody who's a 51%er. Kindness, optimism, work ethic, curious intelligence, empathy, self-awareness, and integrity. We have an expression around here which is always be collecting dots so you can always be connecting dots. There's absolutely no excuse not to know who you're talking to and not to know what's important to that person. And in order to do that, I've got to be collecting dots. We have search engines, we have databases, we have all kinds of opportunities to know who's here, who are they dining with, when did they last eat here, what did they order, what were we talking about, and we keep notes on all of that stuff. And then we put those connections to use for people that make them feel that this is a customized experience just for them. Gramercy Tavern is 21 years old and remains New York's #1 favorite restaurant in the Zagat survey. And we're really proud of that. I think that when someone says that you are their favorite.
I had to point one thing out that we'll be better in some aspects. Did you see the girl putting the tablecloth on the table? Wait till another video comes up. Never do that, guys.
Version of anything. They're paying you the absolute highest compliment they can pay you. No one said Gramercy Tavern is the best restaurant. No one said Lexus is the best car. We'd like to think we are, and you'd like to think you are. But if somebody says, this is my favorite, that's inarguable. Nobody can say, no, it's not your favorite. And if I say Lexus is my favorite car, it wouldn't be my favorite if it also didn't provide an emotional connection that made me feel awesome. We have competitors out there who actually have higher food scores than we have. And we have a higher favorite rating. We have competitors who have even a higher service score. Their waiters wear tuxedos and they do a beautiful job of saucing the fish next to your table, etc. And we have a higher favorite score. So this is not an excuse not to constantly work on our performance. But I think the sum of our performance plus the hospitality experience leads people to say, there's just nowhere I'd rather do business. We're in a day and age with the internet where every good new idea we have, if it's truly a good idea, gets copied. And the shelf life of innovation is you know, it's probably about 5 seconds today. Nobody can take out their smartphone and take a picture of an act of hospitality. They can't take a picture of how you made my heart feel. And so, yes, we're going to keep innovating. Yes, we're going to keep performing at our maximum capacity, but we're going to go to town on the stuff that you cannot copy from us. I tell our team here all the time, you think you're in the restaurant business? Forget about it. This is just a box. It's a hospitality box. That's the advice I would give any business is put it out of your mind that you're selling a car. You're selling happiness and you're selling emotional comfort. And if you can understand who I am, what my sign says when I walk in, where else am I going to go?
So, thoughts. Somebody give me a thought about what you just saw. Come on, guys, we got to wake up. We got to participate.
I mean, and we talked about it in last night's session a little bit. I mean, it's hospitality.
We lost your volume.
It's hospitality. You know, we treat someone like they're in our house. You know, we were talking about how we would care about, you know, how we went over the alcohol last night. You know, we wouldn't treat anybody who fell down in our kitchen and not treat them with hospitality, right? We treat them like they're in our home, like like we invited them. Let's give them the greatest experience.
Mm-hmm. So, somebody else give me something.
I actually saw this video in one of my hospitality classes at UNLV, and I think that this video is so important because it shows that the hospitality is an experience that's customized for the guest, and if you care about the guest's happiness, then you'll give them a great experience, and if the employees are happy, then the guests will be happy.
No, you're correct. So here's my takeaway from Danny's video. I have two major takeaways from this video. One, if you know their name in an industry, they usually know what they're talking about. The commonality in the restaurant industry, from Danny Myers to Wolfgang Puck to Michael Mina to on and on and on, they all understand hospitality. That's why it's the second takeaway. There's tangibles and intangibles. I've eaten enough of Tomas's food that I know the food on the plate from Chef Tomas is going to be wonderful. It's tangible. I'm going to have it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to see it. Danny referred to a product of good hospitality. You can't copy how I made someone's heart feel. Remember, I was saying, in my definition, the best one I've heard of hospitality is I have this superpower to change how you feel if I do hospitality correctly. And that's exactly what Danny's talking about in this video. There are things we go through during the hospitality experience, your personality, he has 6 factors or whatever, I have 18, right? And Denise and I, we tested those 18 factors of your personality, right? So, nobody can remold you. Nobody can rewire you. You can work on skills, you can work on aspects, but you are who you are. We picked you because of who you are. That's intangible, right? It's the intangibles that make the experience over the top. Food, it's going to be over the top. I have the utmost confidence in Chef Thomas. He's going to blow them all out of their shoes. That's a given for me. I've said 1,000,000 times, if you don't have great food, get out of the high-end restaurant business. You don't even belong here. So if you're charging those prices, that food better be great, because you just don't even belong in the game, and you won't last if it's not great, right? Got to be above par to last. We always prided ourselves in our other company. I mean, we built restaurants that lasted 20 years plus. We still have restaurants that have been running over 20 years. That's very hard to do. It's not found every day in the restaurant business. We just closed the original restaurant after 37 years. Not hardly no restaurants make 37 years. Things change. You can't keep up with the times. People get older. I'm looking at a place in Nashville for a Mae Daly's right now. Very successful restaurant for 34 years. Well, why did it close? Husband and wife, no kids, they retired, so that was it. You know? So I was like, okay, it's a good reason. I know the location. We're starting to have internet problems. I hope. Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you
Yeah.
now. You were cutting out a second ago, though.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
got one of those internet signal things. If it keeps happening, tell me if it happens, because I can switch to my hotspot. So anyway, you know, I have the utmost confidence that you guys are going to deliver incredible hospitality, and that's going to be one of the tipping points. Everybody know what a tipping point is? It's a marketing term. It's a factor. What's that one thing that closes the sale or closes the sale every time? What's that one thing where you can make people make decisions? There's always a tipping factor. You can have 25 things in your pitch, but it all has to be leading to that one closing statement or that one idea that you're going to hold, and that's going to tip them over the top, and then you own them and you're going to make the sale, right? Hospitality is our tipping point. Food can be subpar. If hospitality is incredible, people tend to come back. So anyway, I think Danny said it very beautifully, and that's why I played that one. So I pointed out, watch that woman change the tablecloth. So watch this next video. We all have to learn this, and I got to learn it again.
Tell me something I don't know. Everybody tells me that it's God that made it good. God that made it good, and there's no way to finish it. Everybody tells me that it's wrong what I'm feeling, and I shouldn't believe in the things that I'm dreaming. I hear it every day, I hear it all the time. I'm never gonna amount to this, but I'm never gonna change my mind. No.
I want to just point one thing out that was super important that they don't point out. He had that tablecloth nicely hung over the back of the chair. Never, ever put anything on the seat of a chair. People's butts are there. Once it touches a seat of a chair, you don't put it on a table. I don't care what it is. So never, ever put anything on a seat of a chair, okay?
Everybody tells me I don't know what I'm doing. It's my fun to sue and double lose. And everybody tells me that it's 1 in a million, like 1 in a billion, 1 in a billion. I hear it every day, I hear it all the time. I'm never gonna amount to much, but I'm never gonna change my mind. No.
What do you think, guys? Can we change tablecloths like that?
Oh, we can. We will.
We will. So these little things that would drive Chris, me, Tommy, Homa, Craig, any of us that have been doing it a long time at this level, and we go to the restaurants and we watch what we saw in the Danny Meyer video, the parachute, the tablecloth over the top. It's so wrong. It's so disruptive. So anyway, there's a million of these little things that we're going to do, and changing tablecloth's not a little thing to me. It's a big thing. There's a proper way to do it, and we're going to learn how to do it properly. It takes about 20 seconds to change a tablecloth. That video was 2 minutes, but he was going very, very slow to try to explain it.
Rich, the one that drives me nuts if I'm out in a restaurant is when they may have the clean tablecloth over the back of the chair, okay, not on the seat. And then they take the old tablecloth and they just bunch it up in the center.
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah,
the,
yeah.
You know, just the big mess in the middle of the table.
Yeah.
Then they take that and put it on the chair.
Yeah.
And then they put.
Yeah, I call that hoboing in the dining room.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's all, you got to use your head with stuff like this, right? Can you guys see me? So you ever see I'll use this. The waiter comes over to your table and he's got the peppermill under his arm and he's carrying the plates and then he goes like this and blah, 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 and then he moves your fork with his underarm sweat now on his hand. It's like, I look at them and I'm like, go get me a fork and carry it with a napkin.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
mine is on deuces, where you stand on deuces. Like you stand in between the table with your butt right at
With the
someone's face
person
level.
behind you,
And-
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
We will teach you how to stand, how to bend at a table. You know, plates have sauces on it. I like when, you know, say it's supposed to be on the right side, but I got 2 plates. I'm serving Thomas. So I put this plate here and I'm putting the plate in front of him. And somebody comes and hits this plate and Thomas is getting it on his back, right? So, you know, when I come in to serve, my body needs to be on this 90-degree angle kind of thing. So that naturally my other hand went straight out. So if somebody hits it, it's going to get on me or the floor, but it's not going to get on my guest, right? So it's all about how my body English is at a table. So you know, this sounds like a lot, but that's why we're going to be 2 weeks in the restaurant. Once you guys create this culture and this finesse, then when we bring new people in, you know, people leave, new people come, but you guys all become role models. Vanessa will make sure that they're following they'll follow Vanessa. They'll work with you guys and you know, they assimilate in. I'm not going to hire somebody and go, okay, you can start Tuesday, be here to wait tables. That ain't going to happen. I'll take less covers until I have somebody trained to do it well. Throwing bodies at a job is probably the worst thing you can do for your business. And so all this week is just about learning what we should be expecting of each other and what you're about to learn, right? We're not even teaching guys anything yet. We're just like the first page that says, these are just things people should know if you work in a restaurant. If they don't, then, you know, we have a problem.
Rich, can I add something?
But not too long because we're
No,
training
2
video.
seconds. Once everybody learns these things, you'll be so amazed how easy.
Oh yeah.
How easy it is. It's so easy.
And you're going to be amazed at how crazy you're going to get trying to go out to eat and have a good time.
Yeah, you'll be ruined.
It'll become impossible for anybody to please you guys. All right, how to set a table.
Good evening. Tonight we have the Pride of West Africa. It brings together the Ghanaian.
When I was a child, my task at home was to set the table. I think a lot of people grow up with the chore of setting the table in their house. And interestingly enough, when you become a restaurant professional, you spend a lot of time setting tables. And setting tables is all about making it prepared for what is to come. So when you're setting a table, your goal is to make sure that the guest has everything that they need, that it's very pleasing to the eye, makes them completely comfortable, and allows them to relax and enjoy a wonderful meal. Everything that's on a restaurant table has to be beautifully polished and clean. It has to be prepped.
Now, he's 100% right, but I have to take it a step further here a second. In Las Vegas, our water is so bad because it has so many minerals in it, because it comes out of the river, And then there's so many chemicals added to it to purify it. And I don't know what Chris calls it, but I call it skunk glass. So the sediment between our horrible water and the chemicals in the cleaning machines leave a sediment. You can't see it, but it's in there. And for some reason, especially with wine, you pour a bottle of wine into an improperly polished glass here, and it smells like a sewer. And, you know, you're going to get a call over to a table then, and the guy just spent $300 a bottle of wine, and he's like, this wine's corked, this wine's bad, there's something wrong here. They don't realize that this is pretty just, Vegas is the only place I've seen this happening. So I've already purchased a steamer. So during the day, while they're polishing all the glasses, it's actually a drapery steamer. I like it because it has a long hose and it has a stand, the nozzle that it sits on, and we put purified water in it. And it just gives you a steady stream of steam. So every glass will be steamed before it's polished, because the steam will loosen up any sediment inside that glass. And then when you wipe it to polish the watermarks off it, it'll also remove all the sediment out of the glass. So we will be steaming all our glassware. It also makes steaming silver and things like that very easy. I bought one. I think one is enough. Two people can work on one steamer. So if we need a second, I'll get a second. It's a small restaurant. Usually in big restaurants, I have two. So I figure the size of our restaurant, one should work. So you guys might not be steaming the glassware, but you do want to be aware, if you see a glass that didn't look like it was polished, please do not use it. Because not just that it has some watermarks on it, that sediment could activate whatever beverage we put in that glass and create a terrible odor. And bootleggers, they don't steam or polish their glasses correctly. I bought a bottle of wine, I might as well threw it in the garbage. I was sitting at the table drinking out of my bottle.
Yeah, it smells like a fishbowl.
Yeah, it's the worst. So I just wanted to point that out. Here we go.
Pressed, if it's linen, it has to be polished. If it's silverware or glassware, even if it's a paper napkin, it shouldn't have any creases. It should look clean and untouched. It's very important that anything that goes anywhere near a guest's mouth is never touched by your hands.
There's a specific way to fold napkins. Chris will teach you. You fold napkins from the edging. You go to a restaurant and they fold the silverware, right? They call them roll-ups. PGI Fridays, all these restaurants, right? They put a roll-up in front of you. Grosses me out. You ever watch people do roll-ups? Anybody ever do a roll-up with silverware?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like this, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
I'm not putting a roll-up on my mouth. I don't know where your hand's been. I don't. I ask for paper napkins. If they serve me with a roll-up, I get paper napkins, and I ask for a glass of water. Now I dip my silver, I clean it off, and I wipe my mouth and hands with a paper napkin. I'm never going to use a roll-up. To me, it's just so disgusting. It's unbelievable. A lot of people don't think about it. The higher up you go in economic scales in restaurants, the more and more they notice stuff like that. Trust me.
Oh yeah, they've dined places and they comp set us against their restaurant that they like.
Yeah.
You know, we'll go as far as like every bottle of wine, every glass is grabbed from the bottom. Never anything where anybody's mouth is going to be. We set a glass down from the stem. You know, if it's the water glass, we're holding everything at the bottom of the, wine bottle. Our hands are never by the neck. It's always on the body of everything.
There is not a good linen company in Las Vegas, that I can tell you. When we opened Charlie Palmer Steak, and they were opening the Four Seasons, and we were opening Oriel. A fellow named Randy Morton was the president at the Four Seasons here of just that hotel. He was Isidore Sharp's cousin. Isidore Sharp invented and founded the Four Seasons Hotel Company. Randy shocked us all when he left. He became the president of the Bellagio for about 15 years. And now he's with Bill Foley running his empire. So Randy called me one day and he said, I'm going over to, because we had to use the hotels. I think it was Doc Wiener at the time. I think it was Mission Linen. We got to go over. I'm going over to the laundry to teach them how to wash my sheets, pillowcases, blankets, napkins, all my linen. You want to come with me? We can work on Oriels at the same time. I learned more about linen one day from Randy than the rest of my career. And, for a while we were doing all right. But, I was paying extra money. Randy taught me to have them hang the tablecloths on these fat rod curtain things. And I had a rack built for the restaurant. And he helped me get pristine looking tablecloths on my table. Then after a couple of years, Mission moved on and that management there moved on and I couldn't get it done that way. And ever since then, I've never gotten a good looking tablecloth in Las Vegas. For several years after that happened, those drapery steamers, at least for the first seating, I'd have them steam all the tablecloths on the tables. So at least when I opened, all the tables look pristine. I'm hoping, I've met with Jason 3 or 4 times now with this new linen company. They know our expectations. I'm hoping they come in good. But just like a napkin, your tablecloth's a personal thing. My fork is going on your tablecloth, which is going in my mouth. So we don't want to manhandle tablecloths either. But a lot of times when you laid the tablecloth down, it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be needed to be smoothed out. So how do you smooth out a tablecloth? Anybody know? Not you, Chris. I know you know.
The back of your hand?
You remember. Yes. You use the back of your hand to smooth something out. Oil, dirt, everything we touch is on the front of our palms and fingers of our hands, right? But we don't very rarely touch anything with the backs of our hands. They're way cleaner than the front of our hands. So if we're smoothing out a tablecloth, we're doing it with the back of our hands like that, okay? Again, this stuff will be gone through in training. We're just laying out.
The guests don't want to see that, and they don't want to know it's happening, even if it's at another table. So you should always handle all serviceware from the part that will touch the guest's hands. So silverware is handled by the handle. Stemware for wine is handled by the stem.
He said the first thing wrong, but they did it right. I'm going to go back. Silverware is not handled by the handle. It's handled in the center of the stem. And he said it wrong. She did it right. So watch how she handles this fork.
Where for wine is handled by the stem.
I missed it.
Glasses are handled, wine is handled by the stem, handled by all serviceware.
All right, watch her.
From the part that will touch the guest's hands. So silverware.
See where she's picking it up from, that center neck? We polished that handle. I don't want your fingerprints on it. Make sense? I don't want your fingerprints on the prongs because it's going in my mouth. But I don't want it on the handle either because I want my table to look as pristine as that first video we looked at, right? And that's how you keep it looking so pristine. You grab it by that middle neck, okay?
Is handled by the...
And now watch all the glassware, whether it's stem or not, there's one commonality, as low as you can on the glass. If it's a stem, it's the bottom of the stem. If it's a cocktail glass, on the base, never near where my mouth is going. You ever see a bartender get 6 pints of, so he can go and pour the beers and he sticks his fingers in the glasses at PTs and he puts it down. I shouldn't say other places, but you guys know what I'm talking about, right? My head blows off my shoulder. I was like, you don't think I'm drinking that now, do you?
And this is what I tell them. They might as well just put their finger in the customer's mouth.
Yeah.
Handle. Stemware for wine is handled by the stem. Glasses are handled below, far below, where the person's mouth will touch the glass. A table.
Hey guys, here's a question. Not you, not the guys I know, new people. So why does certain stemware have stems? Is it just to make Richard look cool when it's cosmopolitan?
To keep drinks at the right temperature?
There you go.
Is like a wall, and the serviceware on it is like a piece of art. If it's crooked, it will bug everybody. It will never feel right. So you need to be very, very careful when you're setting a table to make sure that things are properly positioned, that they are parallel in the ways they should be parallel and perpendicular in the ways that they should be perpendicular. They should line up and be even. They shouldn't be askew in any particular way. And opposite sides of the table should be a mirror image of each other. That is very calming and relaxing to the guest. When things look sloppy or thrown on the table, it sends a message to the guest that nobody's really taking care of the tabletop. To set a table for the first time, the first thing you do is take care of what's on the bottom. If it's a bare tabletop, you should wipe it down and make sure it's clean and free of any grease or crumbs. If it's a paper covering that your restaurant uses, there should be a fresh, clean piece of paper without any holes or creases in it. If your tabletop is linen covered, the linen should be squarely placed on the table and ironed, either pressed with your hands or with an iron to make sure that it's absolutely pristine. Then you lay down the silver that's required on the table and the napkin in the way that the restaurant has decided that you should set each table before a guest sits down. Some tables are preset with wine glasses or water glasses or both. There may be salt and pepper on the table or a small vase with flowers, or in the evening, a candle. All of these things should have a proper place, and they should be in that place before the guest approaches the table. Another important part of table setting is what's called marking. When you set a table for a next course, you're marking that table. It's important, for example, that people have the steak knife they're going to need before their steak is delivered. Obviously, they need their glass before they get their wine. It's the same concept. So if you're a server and you're responsible for the table, you need to make sure that it's properly marked, that the guest has exactly what they need for what's about to come to them.
An official message from Medicare.
So, my takeaways on that, I commented through, but through training, you guys and Chris will decide what our table setting is. Does the bottom of a knife and my silverware, is that a thumbnail from the edge of the table? Like, it's not a common sense thing. You guys are going to write it in stone, and we all have to do it the same way. But when you walk into a properly set dining room, it's very impressive. I didn't have a great eye. I came into the Charlie Palmer group as a 100% financial guy. And then the Las Vegas opportunity came aboard. And at that point in my life, by the 90s, I operated at a lot of different levels. But the brand Oriel in Oriel, New York, our restaurant we had there, was at a highest of high levels. And I had never operated under that. We did have a maitre d' in New York City. His name was Alex Goris, who had the greatest eye in a dining room I've ever seen anyone have. And what we call the eye is when we had the topic, walk with your eyes wide open. Having an eye means your eye is always wide open. They see everything. People with a great eye can spot everything. Alex wouldn't come and help me open Oriel Las Vegas. I had to pay him out of my pocket to come and help me. And he came to Vegas for 2 weeks with his wife, and they had a nice 2-week vacation on Richard personally. But this was my problem. It wasn't a company problem. I needed him to teach me. So I would go in the restaurant. I have a thing, a restaurant should always be left ready to open. The table should always be set. If I go in there to do interviews, if I go there to show guests during the day, the restaurant, I want it looking pristine. So What I did, I went downstairs. The restaurant was set by the staff already. 11 o'clock every morning for 2 weeks. I would go downstairs and I would fix every detail I seen was off. If there was a smudge on the wall, I'd clean it. If there was a little piece of a sugar packet underneath a side stand that the porter missed, I would clean it. And it was a big restaurant. It would take me 2 hours to detail it out. And the first day Alex comes down with his clipboard, he walks through for 5 minutes, walks out and hands me a 3-page list of everything I missed. And this went on day after day. By the time he left, I was only down to about 15 items a day I would miss. So he improved my eye greatly. I kept working on it. But that's the way you guys, I mean, things out of place, things dirty, things broken, anything wrong, forks that are, flatware that's not set evenly across the table, it jumps at me and smacks me in the head now. But I worked a very long time to get that. Chris has that kind of eye. I know it didn't come naturally to him or anyone, right? It's a skill set that's needed, and you never end trying to improve that eye. And that's what that whole eyes wide open topic is about. All right, we're going to do one more, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break because I need one. It's 12:14.
My house, when I was a kid in France, when I was 10-year-old, my parents, they loved to entertain. But every time the guests were coming, we were waiting at the door for the guests to come. And if you were coming in at 12 o'clock, at 11 o'clock with my brother, I was here. And I was looking through the window whether they were coming. Like this. And this is what, when the customers are coming, when your repeat guests are coming, this is what I feel. But this is where I got it from. It makes your day. When you got these special people who come to your restaurant, it makes your day. You feel so good. You're going to have this conversation. You're going to talk about their family, their sons at university, the new car that they bought, their anniversary. You're sharing a special moment with them.
By the way, this is the French version of Tommy.
For Fred, welcoming people into your restaurant should be as special as welcoming them into your home.
So,
And he wants the trainees to learn how providing a chain of service from the moment they enter will create such an atmosphere.
Mr. James, how are you? Lovely to see you. How are you? How are you, Thomas? Lovely to see you. It's great to see you. Listen, we've got your lovely table organized. Please, Brooke, we'll take.
So I'm stopping here for a second. You notice his body English. He's shaking the hands. He's close to them, right? He has a very, very small desk in front of him. Our host stand, you cannot stand behind on purpose. It's small. It's big enough to hold an iPad, my monkey business card holder, and it's full. When people come in, where you work, they have that huge, enormous host desk where you come in. It's very impersonal to me. Thomas is probably about 4 or 5 feet from me right now. And when I walk into that restaurant, and it's a great restaurant, I'm not knocking it. I love the restaurant. But I hate those type of desks because those people are there and I'm over here, and that's very impersonal. And like this gentleman's saying, it should be like the way I welcome people into my home. I don't welcome you into my home 5 or 6 feet away from you. And we're not going to welcome people into Charlie Palmer Steak that way. We're going to be more engaged.
Mae Daly's.
Mae Daly's, I'm sorry. I've been training in different companies too long. But you need that feeling, right? It's a warmer, it's a more personal introduction. It's the way I greet you when you ring my bell. And that's the way we'll greet people coming in.
It's very cool. Have a great day. Thank you very much.
How are you?
Very well, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Lovely. For the chain of service to work, the customer must be pampered every step of the way.
Nikki's going to be a waitress again this evening.
Lovely to see you. Thank you very much.
It's the simple things that make customers feel special. One of them is called the magic touch. And it's the art of being at the right place at the right time. Magic touch, the both of them. You see, you're there. Get up a little bit. Yes. Take a seat. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Thank you, Fred.
Up. You see, this is the urgency in the movement. Up, up.
This is us. We pull every chair. Like he said, the magic touch. All these little things that people aren't doing anymore. people like these guys that still do it are uber successful because it blows people away. More intangibles, I call it.
Oh, all right, there you go. So maybe you can get the conversation going, you know. Hey, yeah, this is your champagne. Happy anniversary. Thank you. It's a great day. Well done. Then you go away. That's it. I'll leave you a second. I'll come back in a sec. Thank you very much. Great to see you. Great to see you. It is great to see them. They're your friends. They come here all the time. You just have to give them this warmth out. Nothing magic here. You know, it's just about people, and it's about you having these people who are your friends, because when they come this often, they become your friends.
You think that guy knows what he's doing?
No. I'm kidding.
Anybody take away from that one?
It reminded me in the interview with Denise how she starts out and she says that she likes to welcome people like they're in her own home. That was like her introduction statement.
Denise is great at hospitality. I mean, she's great at it. You know, it's that feeling that you can give people, that feeling that you can change their mood, you know, or as Danny Meyer says, touch their heart, create the memory. I mean, all these things, that's our value statement. That's why people pay this level of money for dining experiences, not for food, for dining experiences, right? Because Chef Thomas's food is a major part of it. But if we let them down and all the intangibles around it, I don't know any chef's food that's good enough to make up for everything else missing. There's nobody that good. You know, maybe the soup guy from Seinfeld. I don't know. You know, I've never met anybody.
I learned something from there, Richard.
What's you learn?
I'm going to need a new accent.
I say, it's the French version of you, Tommy.
I'm going to need a new accent.
I'm not going to play you how to butcher an entire cow. It's a great video. A lot of people find it like gory, so I'm going to skip it. You guys want to watch it, I'll leave it to you. I don't think it's imperative that, you know, our service staff knows how to butcher a cow, a steer. We went through yesterday, you know, the parts of the steer that we deal with and the knowledge that you need. But if you're a vegetarian, especially, you don't want to watch that one.
Hi, Jared.
You're welcome. We will watch the next one, which is fishing and farming. And this is tying back to, you know, our topics like environment, sustainability, all of these subjects that we've already touched upon. And I think that this fishing and farming short video will kind of open your guys' eyes to, you know, I keep saying a lot of terms are just marketing terms and not what people think. So when you see all the different ways commercial fishermen fish, I think you understand that label really doesn't mean what you thought it did, or really doesn't mean much at all. So, but it's good to understand, you know, the food industry from different. I'm sorry? Yes, yeah, we talked about Chef Moon yesterday in training. So I'm sorry, I thought there's a bunch of videos. I don't want to play them all, but we'll play what we want, right? So these are all the different ways. You can do beach netting, right? And you can do it on boats as well. And this is the form of commercial fishing that everybody really takes offense to. Because when you net fish and you cast a big net, anything in sea life down there is going in that net. And a lot of it dies because these are huge nets, usually like on a boat net, you know, it's up there, they got to sort through it. And the sea life doesn't survive the sorting process, even though they throw it back into the ocean. Most of the time it dies. That's the type of fishing that, you know, they say you're killing the dolphins with and things like that. The next type that they fish for, and there's different types of fish live at different levels in the ocean. Usually flatfish like halibut, flounder, luke, they all have that white underbelly and the sandy kind of other side. They have two different skins, one on each side. That's because they lay at the bottom of the ocean. That's where they feed. And when they lay on the bottom of the ocean, you can't see them because their skin looks like the bottom of the ocean. And that's why probably those species of fish survived for so many millions of years, because their defense mechanism is camouflage, right? They kind of blend into their environment. So that type of fish, they do the bottom trawls. It's also horrible for the environment because, again, that's grabbing everything that comes in the net's way. Buoy gear. A buoy is something that floats on top and drops bait down below, which is almost like line fishing, right? But again, that's not one guy with a fishing pole and a buoy rig. You know, that's a elevator cable with 3,000 buoy rigs on it. It's not as damaging as net fishing, right? Or trawling on the bottom, but it's damaging. The next style of harvesting seafood is called dredging. So that's a steel cage. It goes on the bottom. It rips up the ocean on the bottom of the ocean. It's capturing clams, or it's going to capture oysters. It's going to capture all those creatures that live in the sand on the bottom of the ocean. Problem is, all the what's the word I'm looking for? Microorganisms, smaller crabs, fish, everything, so many of them, you're destroying the environment that they need to thrive in, right? So that dredging is so not sustainable because it's destroying the environment around it. I don't believe in electric cars. I forget how many acres of land they have to strip mine to get enough product to build one battery for an electric car. It's horrible for whatever environment they're mining, you know, the materials they need. For the batteries, some cars have 6 to 15 batteries. Some car that has one battery, it's the size of the whole chassis of the car. Somewhere on this planet, they are destroying Earth at a rapid speed to make these batteries. On top of it, the batteries need to constantly be charged. Most electricity is still coming from fossil fuel. So they're still burning the fossil fuel, and now on top of it, they're destroying tons of land. That's my opinion of electric cars. That's the equivalent to dredging the bottom of the ocean, strip mining. It's very, very bad. It's profitable, though. Gill nets, they're drifting nets. They'll quarant off an area. Again, they're capturing a lot of byproduct seafood or sea life that, you know, they're killing. Hang on and jigs. They'll call this line caught as well. But look at how many jigs are down below that belt and how many guys are fishing at once. Again, it's not as bad. Line fishing is better than net fishing, but it still damages a lot. Harpooning, mostly outlawed in most because they deem it cruel, but there's still commercial harpooning going on. If you ever read the book Moby Dick, and you know when they used to whale hunt with harpoons, it's just not humane. Long lines, this is probably the most common way of commercial fishing. You see these huge cables going out, and there's hooks on the bottom of thousands of those lines that come down. Midwater trawls is the same as dredging on the bottom, but you can see that the actual net or cages are, you know, not in between the top and bottom of the water. Pole and line fishing, the most humane way to fish. You just can't yield a whole lot of fish for commercial fishermen. In the Chesapeake Bay, you can walk across Chesapeake Bay now because it is so thick with striped bass. Fishermen are only allowed to catch 2, and they have to be of a certain size. 1 month a year, they allow commercial fishermen to go into Chesapeake Bay and line fish like these guys are doing, as many striped bass as they can catch a day for a short period of time. A lot of that gets processed and frozen, you know, to big companies. But, you know, in Chesapeake Bay, if you go fishing out there, you'll ride in a boat for an hour to get out to a good spot to fish. You'll fish for 5 minutes, you're done for the day, and you take an hour to ride home. So a place like that, line fishing can work, but there's not a whole lot of places in the world you can single line fish. Pipe pots aren't so bad, mostly used for crab and lobster. You put bait inside the pots. There's a little opening that they usually can crawl through one way. It's almost like a rat trap, but then they can't get out. I think the pots are pretty humane. You don't get a whole lot of byproduct. I used to have lobster pots for fun out in the Hamptons. And we never really killed much of anything except capture the lobsters we wanted. Purse seines, this is another really dangerous one. It's just a wall of netting, so you're killing a lot of byproduct fish. Trolling lines is kind of like that line fishing we saw before with lures and bait, but the troll, the boat keeps moving. Certain types of fish feed on the go. Tuna, things like that, you would troll fish for. So those are all the different ways you can fish and harvest out of the ocean. And then what the world is working on are better farming. And this is a big thing that Rick was always involved with, Rick Moonen, was better ways to farm fish, just like we raise cattle. The problem with the fish farms, you need either fantastic filtration or do it in a section of a bay or something where the water is in constant motion. Because when you have this many, fish are animals, they poop, they pee. This byproduct coming out of them from what they ate. So when you have millions of fish in a small corridor, you wind up with very polluted water. If you ever had a fish tank, everybody has some catfish in their fish tank. Catfish feed from the bottom of whatever body of water they're in. So they naturally clean all the crap out of your fish tank for you. That's why people always have some fish tanks in their fish tank. So when you fish and you're farming fish and you have too many together, there's not enough catfish in the world to keep that water clean. So the hard part is where if they're doing it in tanks, it's super expensive. We have some major lobster tanks in Las Vegas, so that they weren't here when I got here, but now there are tanks in Vegas, so lobsters can be kept alive while they're in the desert waiting to be purchased. Off-bottom culture involves shellfish, clams. So kind of the same thing, they're artificially creating environments for oysters or clams or mussels. They don't have as bad of byproducts as fin fish. It's easier to do. It's pretty sustainable. These pens are good because these are the types of fish farming that you can do in moving water. So you're not artificially creating the body of water. You're placing the tank, this netted or mesh tank inside natural moving water. Very responsible, very sustainable way of raising fish. Ponds, again, it's not bad, but they've had to spend multi-million dollars in filtration systems to keep that water clean enough to raise clean fish. Fish are just like us or any animal, right? They are what they eat, right? We talked about finishing cattle different ways. What fish eat will affect their taste. I had the River Cafe, a very famous restaurant in New York City. We had a lot of complaints. People were telling us our butter tasted fishy. We got a new butter sauce, this high-end butter. The owner, I'll talk about it from time to time, Buzzy O'Keefe, he got obsessed. Why are people telling us butter tastes fishy? He did his research. They were feeding the cattle that they were getting the milk from to churn the butter. Part of their diet was fish meal. It helped them fatten up quicker. It helped them produce milk. It helped in a lot of ways. But that's why their butter was tasted fishy. So we had to change butters, So it's really funny, all these different things. So those raceways, they're good. They're very expensive to build. These recirculating tanks, again, they're super busy, expensive to build. So business in any industry, there's always a cheaper way to do things. In the food industry, the cheaper way you do something, the less quality food you're going to wind up with, right? So it's our job, Chef Thomas, Chef Rob, myself. It's our jobs to make sure that we're getting good quality food coming from sustainable sources in our restaurant. And it's important that you guys understand this type of thing because high-end customers ask these kinds of questions. And like I said, you can always assure them that we do everything we can to buy the best ingredients that were raised in sustainable environments that we possibly can. Okay? Super uber important at our level of the restaurant industry. You wouldn't ask any of these questions at Arby's or Chi-Chi's, or Chili's, or any of those places, right? But our customers will ask. Okay?
I mean, Richard, there's actually some suppliers that have like the QSR codes.
Oh yeah, we used to serve fish.
Where things come from. I mean, to that point, people want to know how this piece of meat was raised from the beginning.
For a while, we were able to source 2 different fishes that were actually line caught, like the one I said you can't make money at, one guy at a time with one hook and a fishing pole. And it came with the QR code. So if you ordered that specific type of fish, you put it in front of them and you could see who caught your fish and you could see him catching it. They videotaped it, every fish coming up, and they number coded them. People went nuts. I don't know. I don't think they could keep up because it was very popular. And like I say, one fish at a time is not a business model. I think they wound up going out of business. But customers, oh my God, we couldn't get enough of this stuff. They loved it. All right. The 60-second wine expert will end our videos. And again, there were hundreds of videos. These were the ones that touched me. That's why they're on the site.
I had never been ghosted until I started my career in
Someday I'm not going to be so cheap and spend the $5 a month to get rid of
sales. And if you're in sales, you know how hard it can be to stand out in the crowd. No big.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Shep.
Okay, just to point out, anybody but Chris and our guys, anybody know Kevin Israeli is? Okay. So he's a very, very, very famous wine sommelier expert. He wrote a book called The Windows on the World. So on the top of the World Trade Center was a very famous restaurant called Windows on the World. I think it was on the 110th floor. They had an incredible wine program, which Kevin did. Kevin wound up becoming a big industry leader. Some wine people love him. Some wine people think he's a jerk. I happen to love him. His book, The Windows on the World Wine Course, is, I think, a very great introductory wine course that you can do yourself. I will be buying, I'm not doing it I used to do it during training, but I will buy every one of you this book. I will encourage you to read it unless Chris has something different he wants me to buy for you. That's one I always use in the Food Lover's Companion. But he is, to me, he's like Danny Myers. He's an innovator. He's an industry leader, a peer. We've been, in competing businesses. So, but I do respect him greatly. And he tries to make it approachable and understandable. That's what I like about him.
Shepherd from Delish.
I'm Kevin Israeli, author of The Windows in the World Complete Wine Course.
And I'm Kevin's student. Kevin, what am I tasting for when I'm tasting a wine?
Well, it's interesting you should bring up tasting because really wine tasting should have never been called wine tasting. It should have been called wine smelling. But even before I get to that part, one thing I want to do is just look at the color. As this wine is a Pinot Noir, give me the color, a very light color. The lighter the color, the more accessible the wine is now. Then I'm going to swirl it, getting back to my smell thing. And what I want to do is I want to take 3 smells. Take 3 smells on this one. And what am I looking for? Fruit is what I'm really looking for. Not a lot of different words, but fruit. Then I take my hand over the top. And what this does, and it really holds in all the esters, ethers, and aldehydes that make the bouquet and aroma. Smell it again. A bigger smell. And then let's just give the wine a try.
Okay.
Anybody know what kind of wine they're drinking? I think I do. I know Chris does. I think I'm right. Chris is going to be right. Any clue how I know what they're drinking? Because I can't read the label.
You recognize the bottle?
No,
glass, the glass,
who's saying that?
Denise.
You're not allowed to answer. Hi, Denise. Yeah, it's the glass. It's a Pinot glass.
They already said it was a Pinot.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I didn't hear it. Yeah. You guys are going to learn these things, right? There's different shaped bulbs on wine glasses. Most people have an all-purpose wine glass in their home. Not in our restaurants, though. We have the proper wine glass that goes with certain wines. We'll learn all that. Chris will teach you all that. But it's
And
just
flutes. And flutes. Don't forget flutes.
have to have flutes. We have to make Richard look pretty. Okay.
Yes.
Here we go.
I usually leave the wine in my mouth for about 5 seconds, let it warm up. I get more bouquet and aroma, and then I wait 60 seconds to see how the flavor is going.
So that was really, really fast. And I like it because it's so fast. Just to give you an idea of the things we've already talked about our senses, right? You hear what he says, you shouldn't call it wine tasting, you should call it wine smelling, right? It's you're going to learn more about that from your nose than you are from your mouth any day. He was looking at it. So except for Denise or Chris, why was he looking at the wine? What can he tell by looking at it?
The lines, was it the lines in the glass?
We're called legs, right? That could be one thing.
Oh,
he's
legs,
looking
yeah,
at.
sorry.
So different wines have different viscosities. And when it coats when you swirl the wine, why did we swirl the wine?
Is it age? I'm gonna be quiet, bye.
No, why are we swirling the wine?
Is it to let it oxidate?
Yes, we want to introduce, not oxidate, but we want to open it up. Chris, how would you explain introducing air into the wine?
It's called aerating or
Aerating.
agitating.
Agitating, okay.
Everything has a smell component or a chemical component. By swirling it around, you're going to agitate the esters. You're going to create this like little up vacuum of aroma. If you just smell a glass of wine that's sitting on a table, it's going to be less interesting, less aromatic, by I think by 50%, if not more, by agitating the esters.
Older wines, they call it tight. They've been in the bottle for so many years that when you first open the bottle, it takes time for that air to kind of get things going. So, you'll see sometimes when people are using a decanter, we will have decanters, and they usually have a decanter. A lot of times they'll put a screen. Sometimes they won't. It depends on the restaurant and how they like to approach it. But if they're using the screen they're always pouring slowly on an angle. Old wines tend to get sediments, like little particles from the sugar, coagulating and things like that. Or maybe it's a byproduct from the cork that's been in the bottle for 40 years. So they're putting it in a decanter for 2 reasons. Clarity purposes. They want to make sure that they're separating out any of the sediment. And also that bulbous shape of the decanter helps introduce more air into the wine. Chris is going to teach you all how to really taste wine. Some people call it the 5 S's, whatever it is. But right now, this basic level, I just want you to understand, there's details about every single thing we do. Right? People aren't being pompous or pretentious when they're swirling a wine and they're smelling it, and the fella's standing there and he's got the label facing the guest, and the woman or man is waiting for the approval so that he can pour the wine to the host guests. He's not just going, yeah, it tastes good, go ahead. That's me. I don't spend a whole lot of time tasting the bottle. I usually ordering wines I know. If I take a sip, they taste the way they're supposed to. I'm good, go ahead. I'm a steakhouse drinker for sure. Maybe not a steakhouse eater 100%, but I'm a steakhouse drinker. I know what wines I like. I'll try things once in a while, but a lot of times I'm ordering the same bottle of wine over and over. But it's the level of detail and thought that is put into every aspect of this experience. And the tangibles are great. That's our job. The intangibles are your job, right? So the more you learn, the more you know, the quicker you're going to get to a tipping point, and the quicker you're going to get to a tip. And it's as simple as that, right? But the 60-second wine tasting, again, is just to say, hey, you got a lot to learn here too, right? So she was talking about looking at the wine, right? Wine has a viscosity to it, right? Certain types of wines are a little thicker than others. You can tell someone about the age too, about the viscosity, correct, Chris? So the way those lines, after you put the glass up straight, fall down that bulb, that's called the legs, and you can tell certain things from the legs. The other thing, what's another thing Chris is not Chris, this fella Kevin was looking for when he was looking at the wine?
Color.
Not just color. So that is something. The color tells you things, but there's another thing. It's mostly red wines. So Chris will know the right word. I know the principle, right? There's a ring. If you look down into a red glass of wine, you usually want to do it over a white tablecloth, white piece of paper. You have this little red lake in your glass. There's usually a very light ring. Sometimes it's even yellowish around the outside. And the wider that ring gets, usually means the older the wine is. That rim color gets thicker with age. Correct, Chris?
Yeah, it's called the meniscus. So when you're out on the edge of that glass, you can see like an orangey brick color, which will lend to age. And then if it's something that's younger, it's going to be pink purple, and then it'll have a little watery rim, which will show more alcohol due to its youth and intensity.
And don't let your friends know you're going to learn all this stuff, because when you go out to dinner, they're going to drill you all the time because they want you to teach them. Once they know you know about it, it's like
They'll call you. They'll call you.
Oh,
and
yeah. So be careful with your newfound knowledge. It can get annoying. But okay, so that's the end of, again, these are just all meant to set a pace for you guys. Like, this is the things that we're going to be talking about, teaching and learning. Okay. Let me go back to my outline, make sure where we are. Friday videos. Okay. So that's all the preaching for today. I still need to do roll call, and let's reflect a little, guys. To recap, I hate this mouse. To recap, right? 5 top secrets of a successful restaurant. I don't remember them, but I do remember the hospitality being the key, right? The second video, what type of employee do we all want to become?
Performers.
Performers, that's right. What is a hostile work environment?
Sexual harassment, racism.
Sexual harassment's not a hostile work environment.
Where people don't like an entire group of people.
Exactly. Yeah. A hostile work environment is because you're outcasted because you're in a certain group. It could be a religious group. It could be a race group. It could be anything. But it's kind of like the RICO Act of the HR world, right? When you're taking a whole group and discriminating against them. And because you're part of that group, my best friend is a Muslim, right? One of my best friends, one of Denise's best friends, all of us. He's one of our best friends. He's the greatest guy on the face of the earth. After September 11th, on September 13th, he and I were supposed to drive to Los Angeles. He called me up. He goes, Rich, I don't think this is a good idea. I said, why? He goes, I can't leave my house. He goes, people are screaming at me, cursing at me on the street. He goes, I don't feel safe. I said, well, let me think about it at least, all right? And I waited about an hour, and I got an idea, and I called him back, and I said, Aziz, I said, and you're all going to meet him. He'll be here for the grand opening. I said, Aziz, I got an idea. I think we'll be fine going to LA. He said, what? I said, I'm going to wrap an American flag around you, and I'm going to tie you my bumper, and I'm going to drive you there. Because you're an idiot. Hung up. I thought it was cute, though. But That's a hostile life environment. People were going after him because of he belonged to a group of people. He didn't belong to the group of people we all hated, trust me. But they assumed he did, right? So that's a hostile, if that happens at work, that's a hostile work environment. Sexual harassment is usually a one-to-one person. Unless every person in management or every hourly employee was kind of sexually harassing one person, then that would be a hostile work environment. I've never seen that happen in my life. It's really, it's targeted at a group.
I know.
It's like a hate crime, you know, it's very similar to a hate crime, but by a group, you know, of people.
I know an example of that where it was exactly that. It was 3/4 of the employees.
Yeah, but they still, even if it's 3/4 of the employee, they had to be abusing the person because they belong to something else.
Not because of an appearance.
No, appearance is not a hostile work environment. So anyway, we all, this is not a management thing. This is all of us have to make sure that we never become a hostile. That's the worst thing to ever become. I've never had to deal with it. I've never worked in a company that was accused of it. I've had people say they think because their boss yelled at them, it was a hostile work environment. It's just a bad boss. I don't know what to tell you, but it's not a hostile work environment.
You yell at me all the time.
I know, I've been yelling at Craig forever. The 4 great skill sets, I mean, break it down, right? There's levels of communication. Make sure we're clear with each other. If it's a protocol coming from management, or if as a group we decide to change something, we need to immortalize it. We need to send an email, a new protocol sheet, and make sure everybody has it. So that's, you know, and then we got to follow up and make sure it happens, right? So that's, we all have to work on that. Identity versus image. Somebody tell me your identity, I'll tell you your image.
Your identity is who you are as a person.
No. I want to know who Melissa's identity is. I'll tell you if it's your image or not.
Oh, I'm a mom and a doula, and I have special beliefs or certain beliefs about the higher power. I don't know. I just forgot who I am.
Oh, everything you're saying. No, I didn't know the higher power. That's not something you put out there, so I wouldn't know that. But, you know, I would say so far, your image, the image I have of you is the identity that you're saying you are. So that's success. Your image matches your identity.
Sweet.
Right? If you would have told me now that you're a serial killer and, you know, you had kids because your husband wanted to, and I hate kids, I'd be like, wow, her image is not her identity. So you do a good job of telling people who you are, right? And we need to do a good job of telling people who Mae Daly is and who the team at Mae Daly is, right? So that's a perfect example. I don't think we need to talk more about wear your uniform with pride. Chris will be giving you details about uniforms. Cultural awareness in the workplace. It goes right back to our core principle, be kind. You know, if somebody gets you angry or rubs you the wrong way, at least step back and try to understand. That's my Pierre scenario. Once I gave this guy a chance and understood how he worked, I wound up with the best employee ever. I wound up with another best friend, right? So, you know, we have to give each other that time or being, you know, we heard from Dan.
Richard, really quick, back to uniform, hairstyle, facial hair, you know, that's
I'm
part of
not
your
shaving my
uniform.
beard, Chris. I'm not taking it off.
Not you, but I mean, but you know, to make sure our hairstyles, we look neat, and just not the uniform itself, but our appearance, you know.
I will tell you, I will tell you, you know, I have a beard. I try to keep it trim. I don't see anything too wrong with that. I have a problem somebody serving me food with a beard down to the middle of their chest. I have a problem with it. And if I had an employee that did that, I would insist they wore a hairnet on their or a beard facial protector. Beard guard. So yeah, I mean, there's lines, right, Chris? Without a doubt. The art of hospitality, Danny Meyer is a master. I think he really explained it well, right? You know, it's the intangibles, it's the things we can't photograph. Most of the time, that leads to stamping that memory forever. That what a great experience this was. The changing tablecloth things was, you know, that and the wine tasting, they were just kind of to not bait you, but make you understand that every single thing we do, there's a reason, a rhyme, and a philosophy behind it. And you may not like it and want to change it. And I love that. Let's talk about it, okay? Because just because something was done for 50 years one way does not always make it right, or does not always make it the best. When we started our other company, we did a lot of interviews, and whether they asked me or Charlie, we had the same answer for everybody. You know, what's your normal day like? Yeah, trying to avoid people like you. You know, what's your normal day like? You know, and we both said the same thing. We spend our day trying to figure out how to do every little thing better. That was our culture back then. And that's where we are now at inception. We're going to constantly try to figure out, we're going to start at a very high level, but we're going to figure out how to keep going up every day. That's the key to success, which is, Vanessa.
The key to success?
Yeah.
Surpassing customer
There
expectations.
you go. Surpassing customer expectation. Because if I surpassed Chris's expectation as my guest this time, I gotta figure out how to do it again next time. I can't just do consistency is super important, but I'm still gonna want a wow factor him a little every once in a while too, right? Because that'll keep them interested. When we talked about the tasting menus, if anybody ever done that where the chef does 6 or 7 courses, it's not a steakhouse thing. Doesn't belong in steakhouses, in my opinion. But the reason you do tasting menus is not to promote business. If they're doing it to promote business, they usually don't know what they're doing. My favorite steakhouse in Napa Valley is Press. They just got a Michelin star. I was in Napa Valley 2 months ago. They turned into all prefix dinners because now they think they have a Michelin star. They can do that. And they can charge more money. They lost me. I don't go to a steakhouse for a prefixed dinner. So unless they go back to a la carte, they were really well known. They did a bacon tasting as an appetizer. You used to leave dinner, go straight to the ER, you know, and get your heart fixed. It was incredible. Now that they have a Michelin star, there's no more baking tastings there because the Michelin star restaurants don't focus on bacon. Everything I loved about the restaurant is gone now. So that's the consistency part. You know, and you got to be consistent. And how to set a table. Guess we'll go through that. I love the French Tommy on how to welcome a guest. He explained it better than any video I watched on greeting people and things like that. The guy's a master at it, you know. He will. I know if I walked into his restaurant, and I love that they had this tiny little desk, just that little glass table there. There was no barrier between him and his guests. It's exactly how the front of our restaurant is designed. And then, you know, we just looked at fish farming. What were there? I think there were 19 different ways of harvesting fish that we just looked at briefly. But just to give you guys an understanding that sourcing food and sustainability and all these hot social topics that are out there right now are not as simple as media and big business tries to make us believe. It's interesting discussions. Sometimes guests will drag you down that road. I just want to make sure you have enough in your arsenal to have a good conversation about different food items that are very hot social topics right now. And again, I love learning all this stuff because I translate it into my house and my personal life as well. Make sense? All right, roll call. Who's on? We got Chris, Trina, Melissa. That's all I can see. Denise is here. Tommy's on. Tomas is here. Craig is here. And Melissa. Who am I missing? Vanessa.
Ira.
I'm sorry.
Ty.
Kai is here.
Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome, hon.
Who else did I miss?
Tamara.
Shimmy, Tamara.
Jimmy shakes.
You know we love you. We're only kidding, right? It was just too cute.
Way too cute.
Oh, Angelina's here. Anybody else?
Hi, Angelina.
Hi.
Trina, you gonna give us our words of wisdom today, or you gonna bump me again?
Oh boy.
Oh, Trina.
I'm gonna ask you every day till you tell me something.
All right. So words of wisdom. I'd have to say I was just at my daughter's house last night. Crazy thing. I have a 9-year-old grandson, and the police show up at their house to do a welfare check, a wellness check.
Wellness, yeah.
Okay, because he was at school and his speech therapist asked him about a bump he had on his forehead. Now, it's not actually a bump, it's a scar, but because he's darker skinned, the scar is darker. Well, he's very shy, and instead of answering, he plays like he doesn't know. I don't know. So it raises suspicion to the speech therapist. And yeah, last night about 6 p.m., the Metro shows up at their house in Rhodes Ranch, and we were all like, what? They have 4 kids. So we sat down with my 9-year-old grandson, and it was about honesty, about sometimes you're put in uncomfortable situations, or you might not necessarily want to answer the question. The way he got the scar, he was jumping on the trampoline in the backyard, and he was kind of being mean to his younger sister, and she pushed him. She's only 2, and his face hit the wall, and so it scratched his head, and so he had this nasty scratch. And anyway, that's why it healed that way, and it's really dark. So rather than him take responsibility for what happened, he first reaction was, I don't know. He just lied. So and my biggest thing to my kids was always tell the truth, because although the truth sometimes might be hard to admit, it's easy to explain, and then that way it doesn't lead to the police coming to your house. So just be honest. Be honest with people around you.
I'll take that as words of wisdom.
Right, and own it. Just own
And you know what? I like to hear that the school did that. I say my son has severe autism, and so we were flying from New York to back to Las Vegas. We went to New York to visit family, my parents and stuff. I think my son was maybe 10 or 11. And Maury, my wife, was on one side of him, and I was on the other. The 3 of us kind of linked arms because my son tends to wander off, and especially I'm a overprotective parent, and I'm, in an airport, JFK in New York is 1 million people. So we walked through the airport, the 3 of us with our arms linked and him in the middle. And then we get on the plane, and when I get on the plane, I go to sleep within 30 seconds. And I'm sound asleep. We're still on the ground, and somebody's shaking me, and I wake up, and I got two New York City police officers standing in front of me. I thought I had a heart attack, and they were taking me off the plane. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like, why am I on a plane? Somebody watched my wife and I walk through the airport, and they thought we were trafficking a little boy.
Absolutely.
I was very, very happy that they did that. What if somebody did steal my son?
Yeah.
So it reminded me of that situation with your grandson. Your grandson shuts up. My son, or he shuts down. I shouldn't say shuts up, but he's shy. My son can't say anything. So we had to show him all our IDs and everything. But then when they left, I was so happy that they did that to us. I was like, it's I could see how it looked odd, and that's it.
Yeah.
It happens in life. So, but luckily he was with his mom and dad, and everything was fine, and I got to go back to sleep. Thanks for sharing.
No worries.
All right, guys. Have a good day. Appreciate you.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Yes, same
Bye,
bet
guys.
and same bet station.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
All right, the guys here for the Broken Restaurant.